I will take you with me. You might learn something.
About soccer?
Nah, mate. Not about soccer. And for fuck's sake, stop saying soccer.
Würde ich am besten mit dem Wort Burgfrieden beschreiben, im Sinne von, wir brauchen den Burgfrieden.
I would describe this best with the word truce. We need a truce on all levels of the club, with the investor, with the board, with the presidency, with the board of advisors, with those who work for us, with the fans, and with the members. And that only happens if we forgive each other and build trust again. And when that's the basis, we're all in one boat again, tone down our expectations, show a bit more humility, and then have a united board that lives out Hertha's values, that's close to the people, that's listening to the people, that's talking to the people, that supports the club in marketing. If we manage to do all that, then the healing and the coming together will come by itself.
I remember once I spoke to him and I asked him when he will join us in the Curve again, just for a game. You know, it's his living room basically, and he said, first of all, what he created has to work. The club has to be, you know, calm, everybody has to support it, and there has to be, you know, less skepticism around the club. And I had the feeling that the time he passed away was the first time you could say that.
Kai Bernstein was elected the president of Hertha, Berliner SC, then in the first German Bundesliga, in June of 2022. He died at his home near Berlin, January 16th of this year, with Hertha being in the second Bundesliga. What sounds like a short and on the pitch unsuccessful presidency is in fact probably the most significant shift in club leadership and the most significant opening up of possibilities in club leadership that we have seen in not just German football, but I would say European football in the last years. So we're dedicating an hour today to his club, to his life, and to his impact. Kai grew up in Eastern Germany and then in Berlin, and was a founding leader of the oldest ultra group of Hertha. When he became president, he was an event manager with networks and various fan cultures in Germany, and a visionary for his club who placed an emphasis not just on success on the pitch, but in a football club as a community of belonging, of togetherness, of listening, of patience, of modesty, and of excitement and fanaticism as well. I think this little mix of biography and Hertha Berlin club portrait is well worth your time. I'm talking to Mischa from Berlin. He will introduce himself here in a second, but if you have a second, then use that second now to give the podcast a like or some stars in the platform of your choice and spread the word. I hear that often word of mouth or social media messaging works best. There's a little niche audience for the kinds of things that I do here. Today's episode certainly is a testament to that. And I love seeing the community grow. I love hearing from you. Leave a voicemail if you have a chance as well, or shoot an email or a message on one of the social media platforms. And now I hope you enjoy an unusual In Memoriam episode that takes us to Germany's capital. Mischa, greetings to Berlin, and thank you very much for taking the time to talk in a tumultuous, interesting, potentially path-breaking time for your club, for the fan culture you're part of. First, so we get to know you a little bit, how did you come to Hertha? What's your football journey?
Yeah, first of all, thank you that I can be here. A pleasure to speak about Hertha. It's not very usual that I'd say people from other countries are interested in a club like Hertha. So I'm very happy to talk about this club. I'm a season ticket holder since over 10 years. I think it must be like 10, 12 years, club member, even, or no, I'm a season ticket holder since 15 years, club member since 11, 12 years. And as a kid, football interested kid in Berlin, I would say, if you want to support your local club, there's not a lot of opportunities if you're interested in professional football. Back in the days, 2002, 3, I think, was 6 years old. Union Berlin was not even, relevant. So it was pretty clear for me to be a Hertha supporter. And then...
You grew up in West Berlin?
Exactly, yeah. That's also, I would say, it's also a factor. As a kid in West Berlin, you're usually a Hertha supporter. And then I got a season ticket, I think, for my bar mitzvah. for I don't know. I don't want to explain everything, so it's
that's fine. Yeah, I think the listeners get that. Makes sense. Yeah.
So if you're an adult in Judaism, you have bar mitzvah, and my uncle gave it to me as a gift, and from that on, it was a very, I would say, passionate relationship to Hertha, and it never stopped, and it's been ongoing since years now.
Yeah. I got my club membership with Sturm Graz when I turned 16. Probably a similar kind of rite of passage.
Yeah,
mentality from my dad down. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
When you say club member, we should say briefly, we are in Germany. We are in 50+1 country, and Hertha is, in some roundabout ways, a member-owned club. We'll get to how tricky that is in the case of Hertha later on. Season ticket in the curve, in the fan scene, or do you sit?
No, I stand. Luckily, it didn't start as a standing section season ticket holder. I was 13 years old. The first season was with my father together. I didn't really have friends. I went to Hertha with, so it was pretty clear that I will sit. And then I think it must be the second season we got relegated out of 3 relegation seasons up till now. Where I got the standing section, and we were just a group of people going to the games, and now we're actually also kind of active as a fan group. We're not in the fan scene directly, I would say. There's still a path we have to go through there, but yes, we stand. We are active. Yeah.
Do you want to say the name of the group, or rather not?
Yeah, I can say it. Yeah, I actually don't have a problem. We're called Los Spritos. It's I would say we don't take ourselves too seriously. We also have fun at the games, a little more easygoing. And then in some topics, we tend to also, have banners with our positions, and we're still active. So we would say we're more than a drinking group, but we're also not exactly we're not ultras or anything near that. Yeah.
You are also, however, a fan journalist for Hertha of sorts. Is that right? And that's part of how we got in touch.
Yes. I mean, it's, I would say, people could consider me a journalist, but in the end, I'm predominantly just active in a podcast, and as a podcast host together with Mark and other people called Hertha Base, and we are trying to record on a regular basis once a week, talking about the games and everything around the games and different topics which consider the club. So that's my journalist career, but it's not my job, and I'm not doing that as a profession. So, on the contrary to Mark, for example, who's working as a journalist for several media outlets.
Yeah. I envision today's episode a little bit as a memorial to the significance of Kai Bernstein, who was short-term Hertha president and passed away while being in office. January 16th this year. But to understand why this figure warrants this kind of episode and why Hertha, as a second league German team, warrants the kind of attention we're giving it here, I think we need to go back at least to the Bundesliga season 21-22, when Hertha is still playing up first Bundesliga, but has been in kind of perpetual crisis mode for years. That year, Hertha has to go into the relegation. They finish third to bottom and then have to play the third from top team from the second Bundesliga. That happened to be Hamburg, HSV, Hamburg SV, and narrowly won that. So they stay in the Bundesliga, but it leads to the crisis breaking open in the club, and the president at the time, Werner Gegenbauer, resigns. Can you take us through that hot summer a little bit? Because we have an election coming up there, June 26th, in that summer, in the off season. What is that crisis that's breaking up in the club at that time?
Okay, so I think which a very, very big part of this crisis was the relationship between the club and the investor Lars Windhorst, who invested a very, very large amount of money. I think it must be 375 million euros, who kind of understood that it's not so easy for investors in Germany to invest money, but not really gain influence in the active operative relationships or activities they do. And since his money didn't really had the effect he wanted it to have, he got angry. So he had a lot of media appearances. He kind of created a lot of anger within the club, a lot of fights, I would say, and that was kind of the point. He didn't really like our president Werner Gegenbauer. And on the other side, the fan scene also didn't like the president, but they obviously also didn't like the investor. So there was a lot of tension within the club from the management, the presidency, the investor, and everybody else. And I think this was the reason why Kai then said he wants to run for president. Maybe that's the initial situation.
Yeah. When we say investor, what do we mean? How much stake does he hold in the club at the time, Windhorst?
Yeah. So basically, since in Germany we have the rule of 50+1, which means an investor can only own the maximum of 49%.
49, we should say.
49.9% of the club. That's the maximum. There are kind of loopholes, which allows him also to invest more money, but doesn't allow him to gain more influence. If there's in Germany we say Tochtergesellschaft, I don't know, no? Daughter company or something like.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But we don't have to go into details. But that's basically, so he due to this rule, he can never gain so much influence that he can decide what the club is doing in the operative business. Yeah.
Right. And he wants the club to go in different directions. There's these visions of Hertha becoming, a couple of years before, the famous big city club slogan and the next coming power in German football. Berlin, obviously the largest city in Germany. Hertha is playing in its largest stadium, in the Olympic Stadium. The second power, Union, right now is on the rise back then. And beyond those troubles around the investor, beyond the success on the pitch, is this looming identity crisis, if I understand it right? What is Hertha? What does it stand for? That question is kind of an open wound in the club. And a guy named Kai Bernstein decides to run for president. Who is he, briefly, up until this point?
up until this point, I didn't really know him, to be honest. I remember he launched a website. Yeah, I think it was also called wirhertana.de. I'm not even sure. And he had like a couple of positions, and they were written very aggressively, and I wasn't even sure. Well, is he the guy who's going to save us from this identity crisis? But that was basically the first point. And until then, this identity crisis has been ongoing for years since I've been a fan. You know, the club has always been trying to kind of get in touch with the population in Berlin with exaggerated marketing campaigns, which were all more than embarrassing and nothing else. And then Kai basically came, and I just remember that via a friend, or not even friend until that point, who asked me if I can support Kai for his campaign before the election. That was basically my first getting in touch with him. Before, I didn't really know him at all.
Yeah. He's from East Germany originally. He grew up in Saxony, moved to Berlin as a kid, and then founded the fan group Harlekins Berlin in the late 90s. Do we want to say a little bit about the pioneering role of the Harlekins?
Yeah, so I think you can consider the Harlekins, or I'm sure you can consider Harlekins the leading fan group, the leading ultra group in our Ostkurve. They have the Capos, the people who motivate the whole curve to sing and jump and do whatever, and they coordinate a lot of choreographies, also social activities, everything around the curve is basically coordinated by them. And he founded this group in 1998. Obviously, back then it had a different position than now, and until now it has evolved into a very, very active and loud and also renommated group in the whole of Germany.
He was a capo for a while as well for the Harlekins, right?
Yeah, he was a capo for I don't know how long. Not during my time,
right?
But yes, that was what he did. I saw pictures of him. You couldn't even recognize him, almost like looking very different. Yeah,
and kind of a natural networker as well, right? Very well connected already during his ultra years.
Yes, yeah, I think that's something which he also benefited from, and also the whole club benefited from during his presidency, that he always tried to network between the ultra scenes in the whole of Germany concerning topics which basically were in the interest of all the groups. And I would say he was a pioneer of this motto, which a lot of ultra groups had. We say in den Farben getrennt, in der Sache vereint, divided by colors, but united in
the cause.
In the cause, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was something he was really, really strong in. And actually, today I spoke to a friend who said that he recently saw a picture. He's a Cologne fan, and he saw a picture of their capo. Talking to Kai, but back in the days, like, I don't know, let it be 20 years ago. So yeah, that was a very big strength of his. Yeah.
He was banned from the stadium for a while as well, for reasons that ultra leaders tend to get banned, especially in those early heady days. Yeah. Worked for radio, worked as an event manager. By the time he runs as a president, though, he's not active in the ultra movement anymore. So you say your time didn't overlap. He's kind of moved to the main stand and to a sitting spot there. Was that the same, would you say, for many in your generation? The reaction when he decided to run of who is this guy? What does he want? Is this kind of a messianic figure or charlatan? Who is it? Would that have been a typical reaction?
I would say that probably for a lot of people, this was the reaction. They were very skeptical. I wouldn't say it was my reaction, and I also wouldn't say my friends thought like that. But I think if you know, as a normal Hertha fan, and you see, okay, that there's a ex-ultra who was a capo, who founded the Harlekins, runs for presidency, they are skeptical at first. So my reasons for being skeptical in the beginning were just, you know, that I didn't really know him, and I saw this website and I couldn't really picture the values he would stand for, but not the fact that he was ultra. I think that would, in my opinion, makes him more sympathetic, because you know, he loves the club. He's there for the club. That's very important for me, which I didn't really have the feeling with our former president Werner Gegenbauer. I wouldn't say he didn't, but you know, you didn't feel it. Yeah,
there's clearly a disconnect between not just him and the investor, but also him and the fan culture. There is this website you mentioned, and then there is kind of a proper presidential election campaign. He's not the only candidate. What are the open questions in that short but heated campaign for who is Hertha's next president? How does the campaign go, and what are the different sides?
I would say, since I think there must have been 3 or 4 candidates. But until the real election, there were only 2. It was Kai Bernstein or Frank Steffel, who was a former politician of the CDU, the Conservative Party in Germany.
Yep.
So the question was, will we continue like we have been before, or will we start the club or we have a new start? Why was that the question? I would say, I don't know how to call it, Aufsichtsrat.
That's the advisory board of Hertha.
The advisory board actually recommended Frank Steffel to be, recommended him as a president, which you can already question whether this is something they should do, since we have this very member-based culture in Germany. And so this was the question: should we continue the way we did, or will we have a complete new start? And that was also the first, I would say, moment where I was very, very strong in favor of Kai, and was clear in my opinion. Yes.
Frank Steffel comes from handball, I think, was a manager of the local handball team before.
Yes, yeah.
And kind of ran as I don't know, how would you say, innovator in his own right, but also a bit of a status quo candidate, right? Well-connected politician, that kind of thing.
I would also say so. You also noticed in his speech for the campaign, he, you know, right before we voted, he was very eloquent. He could talk. You know, he was in the first moment very, I would say, he had a high self-esteem, and then when it slowly came to difficult questions, whether what is he standing for, what does he want to achieve, he actually didn't really have good answers, and that was also, I think, for a lot of members, the moment where they noticed, okay, he doesn't really have a plan. He's just going to continue the way the club has been running for years.
And Kai, in return, what was his agenda? What did he run on?
Kai basically said he wants to reunite the club, since it was very divided. There were, you could say the members, the fans, not only the members, but also fans who later became members when he was president, and the whole board, the whole management were disconnected. Even between fans, there was a lot of different opinions. Let's put it that way. And that was one very huge goal of his. And the other one was to actually, I would say the main goal was to get the club back, or take it away from the investor, bring it to its basis, and pull it up from scratch. That would have been his dream. Obviously, it's not really possible since we had a lot of debts, and we were so deep in this hole of commercialization that it wasn't possible. But bringing it back to the basis and reuniting it, that were the main goals of Kai, I would say.
So would you say his campaign was more of a campaign to listen to the members again and increase a sense of belonging and participation? It's kind of a soft agenda, but is that the appeal?
Exactly. It was a soft agenda. And I also would say that was a main criticism other people had, saying he doesn't really have the knowledge, the know-how to run a club. He was an event manager, but on the contrary to Frank Steffel, who was a president for the handball club for years, people were skeptical whether he had the knowledge and the know-how, and more soft agenda, reuniting and listen to each other. So yeah, that was something we didn't know whether he could do it. On the other hand, that's not the job of a president, that's the job of the management, and he just has to choose the right people. And that's why, for me, I didn't really have the fear that he can't choose the right people, since he has been also a manager in a company before. Yeah.
All right. Then in June, the members' assembly happens. What goes down?
Yeah. So I think I met with a few people probably 2 hours before it started, 9:00 in the morning on a Sunday, had a long night before. So didn't really expect, or didn't really know what I was going to experience on that day. And we had a little flyers. I don't know, you say flyers, yeah, with his main views, his main key facts he wanted to change in the club.
So you were actively campaigning for him?
I was actively campaigning, yes. But that was the first moment. Before, I didn't really do that. And we just were standing in front of the house where it was taking place, the hall, and just, trying to talk to the members and trying to convince them. And then the whole assembly was taking place. They both hold their speeches. And I must say, I wasn't even sure he will win this, because I noticed there were clearly two blocks of people, supporting the other candidate. And I don't remember the exact result in the end, but it wasn't that clear in that moment. You must have been 55, 60%, something like that. But I clearly remember when the result was announced, and there was like a huge roar in my section, and people starting, singing songs like Hertha BSC ist unser Verein, which is like a very famous song in our curve. Hertha BSC is our club, and that was I get goosebumps only thinking about that moment. It was really emotional. Yeah.
Yes, and I have a recording of this assembly.
Yeah.
I'll play a little clip of that now.
Und es gibt Ja-Stimmen für Kai Bernstein mit 1600.
He gets elected, and you're right, it was a tight result. Is there a sense of even more fracturing in the club in the immediate aftermath, or a kind of a pulling together? How would you describe the sentiment?
I think it could have gone that way. that there was a even more dividing, culture after that. But that's something Kai was really good in, unifying the people, even the people who didn't support them in the beginning. And that was also part of his speech, after being elected. He said, we have to stick together. I'm also talking to the people who didn't vote me today. It's okay. That's obviously democracy, and we'll do this together. That's the way we will, make Hertha the club it was years ago, and so there was this fear of the division, but he had this strength of pulling everybody together from the first second on, and that was unbelievable. I mean, people were proud of Hertha again. Obviously, you always are as a fan, but there was a energy. I can't even put it into words now. Yeah.
Also an energy that translates kind of into, I think, a different vibe around Hertha, around the city, is what's been told to me, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, talking about within the city, it was the first moment I could see a lot of people wearing Hertha clothes in normal days, not around the game, but just on a normal weekday, so saw people wearing the jackets, even the famous Kai Bernstein jacket, which he also wore during his presidency.
He always wore this tracksuit top, the blue tracksuit top. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody wore it. And not only, obviously, it was also a nice piece, but kind of represented him. And suddenly everybody was wearing Hertha clothes again, and that was really, you could see the people were proud again. And even going across the borders of Berlin, talking to fans of other clubs in the whole of Germany, everybody knew who he was, what he was standing for, and people were also talking differently about Hertha. Before, it was nobody cared about us. In the end, a lot of people hated us. And that was the first time we kind of had an identity again, even though being in a very difficult position, which, I mean, like in the competition in the Bundesliga, and that was very special.
Yeah, we should say that. I mean, he gets elected in June. The next season is Hertha's last season in the first Bundesliga so far, because he got relegated. In the same city, Union is soaring to new heights, kind of has this everybody loves them vibe around them. I'm very skeptical of that, as listeners will know. And Hertha down at the bottom of the table and gets relegated. And still there's the sentiment of, we have a sense of who we are again. We have a sense of respect from others again. It must have been a weird season.
Definitely. I mean, I think during that time where we slowly realized we're going down, I didn't really care about what people would think about us, because I was just, devastated about the club's condition. But yeah, I mean, you are basically in the relegation zone, losing every game, and people would say, but you know what? It's very, very nice to see that a club in this, huge construct of commercialization, there's a president who's really trying to fight that, and also gains, who also wins these fights at some points, and that's just unbelievable, because you can see it in so many other clubs. The fans, they have so much more to fight against, because it's not only the investor but also the club not really caring about the interests of their fans. So that was pretty special.
What's the vibe in the stands? Would you say at that time, is Hertha's fan culture community growing? Because you mentioned before a few members join the club when he becomes president.
I don't have the exact numbers. I think in the time he was president, we had over 10,000 more members in the most difficult time of the club.
Wow.
And that actually also already represents what he created. In the stands itself, I would also say there was a different vibe, because, I mean, the Harlekins had a president, the Harlekins are the main leading group in the curve, and then their former capo is the president of the club. So automatically, I think they feel more comfortable. I could imagine. I don't know. No, I don't really talk to them that much, but I think that's also the vibe I experienced in the curve. So there was a much more positive vibe the first half of the club, the season. I think the more it ran towards the end, and we was losing game after game after game, it was difficult. But it was never against Kai, and I think, and never against the whole president board. So I would say that it was still different compared to the years before. But that obviously it was very difficult to remain positive in that moment.
Yeah. What does he do to make for that kind of vibe? What do his actions look like as a president, especially in that first half season?
Well, I would say the biggest strength he did, or the most activities he did, were just talking to the people. He was, I don't remember one picture of Werner Gegenbauer, who has been president for years before, talking to the members, talking to the fans. I have, just looking on Twitter, you had hundreds of profile pics with Kai Bernstein and the fan. He was talking to the people all the time. He had a very, very strong connection. He treated every fan the same. I think that's something, people saw that even if they didn't talk to him, they saw, they knew if they'd met him, he wouldn't be too arrogant to talk to them. He would care about their position. And that's something he did. He also, we had events, driving with the bike to the stadium, just, to I would say, try to have more conscience about the environment. He was right in the front, riding the bike with the fans. There were events when it went worse in the Bundesliga, where he offered to speak to the members. And all these moments just showed the dialogue was his main goal and on his main activity, and people respected that. And that was, I think, the reason why we never really lost our hope that this club, even though doing so badly in the Bundesliga, goes in the right direction.
So was his sentiment not that sporting success on the field is unimportant, but that at this particular moment in Hertha's history, there's something more important to the sustainability and the thriving of the club than just success on the pitch?
Yes, I would say that was that's a good summary. He didn't think it was unimportant, but he knew, in order to gain success and to let everybody experience this success, we have to stick together and respect each other. And that was definitely very important, for him.
What happens to the investor? When we started out, this is a big cause of turmoil in the club, in the fan scene. How does he deal with the investor? How does the investor deal with him?
I think it was pretty clear from the moment, like looking back now, from the moment he got elected, that Lars Windhorst, the former investor, won't remain the main investor of Hertha. It was, I wouldn't say in that moment, I didn't know it exactly, but he supported Frank Steffel, the other candidate. But it was also clear that we won't survive without an investor. I mean, even though then the moment Lars Windhorst sold his shares to 777, this American company, they...
it's a hedge fund, basically, right? With a sporting theme, yeah.
Yeah, I think... I forgot what I wanted to say, but he basically... we knew that Lars Windhorst won't stay. We knew exactly we still need an investor, and even though they bought the shares and we got some money. It was still a very, very critical state. So
777 bought all of Windhorst's shares. Is that right?
I think so. I'm not sure. I'm 90% sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That is a kind of one of these multi-club investor firms. A number of other teams have a stake of, or a majority in some cases, of 777 in them as well. And was Windhorst communicating that as kind of out of a pragmatic sense of necessity? It is what it is. Did the members have any say even in those stakes being sold? Because they're not theirs, right? That's that minority stake that we talked about at the beginning.
So I think, I mean, we didn't vote anything. It was Windhorst sold these shares and we just we were notified. I think we also don't have a say in it, and it was clearly communicated that this is a necessity. I mean, even though we sold the shares and we got the money, it wasn't even clear whether we will get the license to play in the second division. So nobody really protested against it. But the more we know about 777, the less I am amused about these investors holding shares of my club.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. You were right. He sells the majority, sells all of his shares, and then there's some legal issues with payment and when he gets paid and not upfront. Yada yada yada. We won't get into the details there. Why are you more skeptical of 777 now?
Well, first of all, I think these multi-club ownerships are not the football I want to see, even though Hertha would profit from it. And I think we also did. There were like 2 or 3 transfers of players which were made within this multi-club ownership. This is the first thing. I think it's not fair towards other clubs. I think we are our own club. We don't have to cooperate with other clubs which we don't have any connection with. And the other thing is, I mean, I didn't really take a deep dive into their relationships in their financial business activities, but there were 2 or 3 articles which didn't really seem that their business is clean, I would say. And also I think it must have been a few months ago, they said that for them, football is also an opportunity to, take the commercialization to the next level. So to sell insurances at games, that's not the football I want to see. If it's up to me, I pay, $5 for a ticket and eat my sausage and drink my beer. Also my vegan sausage, I don't care. But, that's something I'm a fan of. And everything else is not football, in my opinion. And clearly they have a different vision of it.
Very clearly. And they've made that clear at other clubs as well. Open up new sources of revenue through those clubs, and very intentional, for better or for worse, about how to further commercialize football. Yeah. Yeah,
could say that, yeah.
Well, the season ends, Hertha goes down. Are there any fears for the existence of the club at that point? What kind of future scenario does Kai Bernstein cast? Is it the immediate, well, we're going to go right back up again? Or is he keying into a more patient building back up kind of period?
Well, first of all, I think there was definitely a fear also for the existence of the club. We were in a very bad state. As I said before, there wasn't clear whether we'll get the license. There were a lot of employees who had to be who got laid off, and the whole how you say Geschäftsstelle, the whole.
Well, so the full-term employees who work for the club, I can't quite come up with the exact word either. Right?
Exactly. So
the main office of the club, basically, right?
The main office was much smaller due to this to the relegation. And that basically already represented the fear also we fans had. I didn't have the feeling that there was a vibe in the club saying we have to go up right away. I didn't expect it because, a lot of players left the club and we had a lot of young players. And since we didn't get the license right in the beginning, we also couldn't buy more players. Who wants to join a club, not knowing whether we will go into the second, third, or fourth division. So that was also maybe a big factor why nobody said we have to get promoted right away. Kai Bernstein also tried to, load the expectations, but without saying we don't have any ambitions. So it was a difficult situation for everybody to create a vibe which was still ambitious, but not putting much pressure on this promotion factor.
How does the second Bundesliga start off? I mean, it's a weird league. There's a number of very big clubs in there. There's Hamburger SV is in there. Schalke's second league as well. And then there's some very small clubs as well. I mean, you're now going with Hertha's Ultras to Elversberg and to all these small town clubs as well. How did it feel for you as a fan to no longer be going to Dortmund and Bayern, etc., but show up in these second league towns?
I mean, I must say it's much more fun than being in the first division, because obviously there's Dortmund, Dortmund, Bayern, and other clubs in the first division. But there's, as you said, Hamburger SV, St. Pauli, Kaiserslautern, Düsseldorf, which are also former huge first division clubs who have not being able to get promoted for years now. Not all of them, but some, and that's just fun. I must say they bring a lot of fans with to Berlin, and I see new stadiums when I go on away games, and I don't have to go to Leipzig. I don't have to go to Wolfsburg, Hoffenheim.
Yeah.
There's a lot of advantages in the second league, and even though we didn't start well in the second division, I'm until now enjoying every second of it. And I mean, I don't think we'll get promoted, so I'm looking forward to the next season as well.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, and new rivals in the stands as well. I mean, all these clubs you named. Then Nuremberg comes to mind as well, with decades-long traditions of fan culture that you meet there in the stands. So new opponents there as well. Is away travel any different? Police any less aggressive in the second league?
No, I wouldn't say so. I would say it's at least the same. At least, especially the games against Rostock, St. Pauli, and other clubs. It's even more. They're even more aggressive, and we're kind of isolated completely from the city, not even being able to go anywhere. My friends also shared their experiences. So, no, I would say the police is the same. The same, yeah.
As the season is going on, slowly but surely, the team stabilizes. You're beginning to enjoy this league. And then the news hits on January 16th, 2024. Kai Bernstein is found dead in his house near Berlin. He was 43 years of age when he passed. How did you learn the news?
I think it was in our WhatsApp group for our podcast, Hertha Base. There was only one little tweet, nobody looked at it, which said, did you hear about the news? And then somebody also wrote us on the private message on Insta. And we were not really sure how to react on that, because, there was no verified news, but we very quickly learned that these rumors were true. And I was traveling through Germany work-wise, and I had to function that moment. So it was a very, very weird situation for me, but I was devastated. I was, I remember then going to my hotel room and just didn't really know what to think about and how to react. And on that night, even, there was in front of the stadium, there was huge amounts of candles and scarves and everything.
The vigil, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was it was just a huge shock. I mean, I don't really, and even now I can't really put it into words how it affected us, and especially in a time, I would say. I mean, I didn't talk a lot to Kai, but I remember once I spoke to him, and I asked him when he will join us in the curve again, just for a game. It's his living room basically, and he said, first of all, what he created has to work. The club has to be, calm. Everybody has to support it, and there has to be, less skepticism around the club. And I had the feeling that the time he passed away was the first time you could say that, because we were in a, would say, not, very good position in second league, but we didn't lose for 10 games. Everybody was together. Everybody was unified again. We were in the quarterfinals of the German Cup. There was the fans and the team, everybody had a strong connection. So it was, I had the feeling it would have been a good moment for him to return for a game. And that was basically the time he passed away, which made it even worse, in my opinion. Yeah.
There's people who are very close to him, and then there's people who associated a new future of Hertha with him. In that moment, could you see what his legacy might be? Or was the fear that the club might go back to the chaos days of 21, 22 again?
I still have the fear. I mean, even though I don't think the people would try to change what he created or go into another direction, I'm sure Fabi Drescher, who's the president right now, was the vice president before, or the second president, and also everybody in the management board. I think they are trying to continue what he created, but obviously it's still not him. And there's just, there's always the fear that it won't continue the way he started. So that won't go away, even though I'm sure I trust everybody being in the leading positions right now. But you could definitely see the legacy started. Even looking at the reactions of almost every fan curve in Germany, giving him his last, sending some words and giving him his last respect, because they saw what he created.
When he died, he was memorialized as the ultra president. You already mentioned that other fanzines memorialized him as well. Eulogy and banners, a lot of sympathy expressed with Hertha. Is there kind of an impact that you would say he had beyond Hertha BSC? And what is possible when leadership changes from the grassroots up at a football club, even in these modern times?
Yeah, I think exactly looking at the way he ran the club, I think fans of other clubs saw what is possible when members come together, vote a president they trust, and the president actually also tries to change what the members want, and that's basically, because everybody always said, 50+1 is just a name. It doesn't exist anyway. And that was exactly the proof that it is possible. And I think a lot of fans in all over Germany, and even, you know, across Europe, saw that this is still possible in these modern times.
What did you hear from fans of other clubs actually about Hertha during this period and since then?
During the period he was president, or the period he died?
Yes, president and death as well during the Bernstein era.
Well, during the Bernstein era, I think I entirely heard positive things from other fans, saying they're almost, you know, jealous. For example, you know, Union Berlin was always known as this fan near club.
Yeah.
And even from these sides, I heard positive things about him, and you know, just looking at towards Hanover, for example, you know, where you have huge fights with Martin Kind, who was trying to, you know, gain influence in a way the members don't want it.
Yeah, this is the investor who probably most actively is pushing for an abolishment of 50+1.
Exactly.
Hanover 96. Yeah.
So from these sides, I heard a lot of positive things, and then especially when he died, you know, I didn't have a personal relationship to him, but I got messages, you know, saying, "I'm so sorry for your loss." These are things you don't hear, you know, from a president in normal. When the president of a club dies or passes away, you hear that when a family member passes away. So it just shows the influence, the impact he had on us, but also on every other fan all over Germany.
Mm. The first home game after his death, when the spring season started back up, turned into a huge memorial for Kai. How was that day for you?
I mean, I was kind of scared of that day. I knew it won't be easy. I think we met at 10 o'clock, you know, for a memorial walk organized by the ultra scene of Hertha. It was huge. I don't know. I don't want to say a number because I don't know it, but it was one of the biggest memorial walks of fans I've been seen in years.
Was it in the 5 digits?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And also fans of from other clubs were coming, also from Union Berlin, I must say.
Okay.
And that was spooky. Yeah, it was very quiet. There was no alcohol, no flares, nothing, no songs. Just walking and showing him some respect. And then the game, I mean, I've never seen our capo so devastated. He was clearly fighting himself, only being there, you know, because he also had a special relationship to Kai, I think. And then the stadium speaker, the person who announces everything in the stadium, he just had some words for Kai, and then his voice cracked and he started crying. And then, you know, I just saw everybody around me and me myself also just starting to cry. And that's the biggest moment I remember of this game. And then everything which happened on the pitch. I mean, we played 2-2. I remember that, but didn't really care about it. I just knew I had to kind of survive that day and show Kai one last moment of respect. Yeah.
Media reports around his death and around that game often highlighted the fact that he brought the club together, but also his past, his origins in the ultra movement. Do you think he was able to shift something in the popular perception in Germany, at least, about what ultra is, about what it means to be a fan who takes an active stake in his or her club?
I would say yes. He definitely shifted the perception of also ultras in Germany into a more positive way, because it showed. I mean, people who were in touch with ultras and everything knew this wasn't the reality, but there was a perception of them being only violent, beating up other fans, only doing, I don't know, bad stuff basically, and also thinking of them very highly on the contrary to other fans. And he shifted that perception definitely, because people knew who he was and they saw how he acted during his presidency. So there was a different perception. And that was also difficult because he actually also had a lot of, I would say not enemies, but at least media outlets from Springer, the I would say populist.
That's kind of the biggest chain of tabloids in Germany. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they were very, I think, critical of him, to put it in a very nice way. They were not fair, in my opinion. And they had a very clear picture of ultras and fans like him. And so it wasn't even easy for him to change that perception, but he still achieved that different way of viewing ultras and football fans in general.
Now what for Hertha?
Yeah, difficult question. I think in the moment we just have to finish the season. We should try to finish it in a more calm way. That it's still not impossible to get promoted, and I won't. I mean, my hopes aren't high, but I will never stop hoping until it's over.
What, you would like to leave this beautiful second Bundesliga?
No, and yes. For me, of course, it's very nice, and it's something different. So I'm enjoying it, but as a fan, I always want the best for my club, and I always want the biggest possible success, and that's the promotion. And I also know that we're still not in a financial position to say, okay, another year of second division is probably easy going for us. We need to get promoted sometime, otherwise it will be going in a very, very different direction. So my hopes won't stop. And on the other side, we have to see what happens in summer when we have to elect a new president. In the moment, it's as I said, Fabian Drescher, who has been his I would say, you say vice president? Can you say that?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Who was the vice president before, and now is the interim president of Hertha. And then we have to see if there are other candidates. I have no opinion of that in the moment. I just know it will be very difficult for the person who will be the next president to nobody will say be the next Kai Bernstein. You can't do that. It's impossible. And it shouldn't be like that, because that's also what really describes the legacy of Kai. But it will still be a very, very difficult task to I don't know, continue the way we started now. So we have to see. It's a very undefined future in the moment.
The stadium question has hovered around Hertha for a little bit. You're playing in the big Olympic stadium. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but the sense of belonging that's generated between a place and the people in those moments is often very strong. I remember when Ivica Osim died, Sturm's legendary coach from Bosnia, the memorial in that stadium was, I don't know, it shifted something for me in my relationship to that place, which I had been skeptical of for various reasons before. How do you view the Olympia Stadium question and Hertha's future along? Because that's often also been pitched in terms of financial future and sustainability of the club, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm still not sure what I think of the whole question. I mean, I grew up in the stadium, and so since I've been experiencing these games being far from the field all my life, I really don't care about it, to be honest.
There's a running track, so this is as Olympic stadiums have it. I mean, with West Ham, it's not that much better. You're also quite far away, and Berlin, a similar situation. Yeah, so you don't mind it by now.
I don't mind it, but I do see the perks of not having it. So the thing is, I know that the Ostkurve, our curve, is one of the best in Germany, and I think when also hearing from other fans of other clubs, they say if we had a football stadium without a running track, just I don't know, 50,000 seats, we would be one of the loudest stadiums in Germany. So I do think a new stadium would be a huge advantage. On the other side, I do have an emotional connection to the Olympic Stadium. Even me as a Jew being in a stadium which was built by Nazis, which is also kind of a weird feeling, and you see it, the whole architecture and everything. But I think a new stadium would definitely be also would be nice. But I think it will still be a long way, because the politics in Berlin are not really, helping us.
Yeah. And the money situation in Berlin as a whole.
And the money.
But is there talk about a or longer term type of memorial for I don't necessarily mean physical, but something either built or something in structures that continues the legacy in an outward facing way?
I don't know whether there's something planned. What I do know is that during his presidency, he planted a tree next to the office, and this tree basically was representing, the new era of the club. And he basically said, he wants this tree to grow as the club evolves and grows together again. And this tree now has kind of a section of stones around it now saying Kai Bernstein, and it's very important to the club that this tree remains and grows even stronger. So maybe this is a memorial place. Otherwise, I'm not sure. I don't think we will rename, I don't know, some, our curve or anything after him. But who knows what is planned? I'm not part of that. Yeah.
Right. And that tree is an apple tree. It's a fruit bearing tree. I think that's significant as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Anything we left out from his story, from Hertha's story?
I can't think of anything. I think we pretty much captured the influence, the impact he had on the club and what he left behind. Maybe it's just fair to say that even though the club, was in deep sadness, he also left behind a wife, 2 children, and
yes. Mm-hmm.
And I always said I feel so sad, but I can't even imagine what they must feel in that moment. Or his mother, his mother was actually she visited the last game against Schalke.
Yeah.
And that was also a very emotional moment. Yeah.
Yeah. If I was to talk to you again in 5 years, what kind of 5 years would it have had to be in order for you to say those were good 5 years for Hertha?
Difficult question. I think the most important to me is to, remain modest. Don't have a big mouth in the what do you say? To don't be, just be modest as a club. and also remain this way of, trusting the youth players from their own academy, also giving them the time they need, and through that, I also think it will strengthen the connection between the team and the fans, which is very, very important for the success of the club, because we could see now also in times where it was difficult, and we had a few losses. That's what prevented us from losing even more and kind of getting the turnaround again. So that's the most important. Everything else, in terms of success in the competition, I always want the best, but I don't really care. I just want to be together with my friends in the curve. I want the club to be modest. I want everybody to listen to each other, to be unified as a club, and to just continue the way we did now.
And this is what I hear from fans. The kind of vision you outlined is what I hear from fans a lot, is what my own vision for my club is as well. But it's a testament to how unusual Kai Bernstein was, that what you just said is something that I think he might have said as well as a president.
Yeah, he said these kind of things a lot, so I'm sure he also would say something similar, without saying this. The competition is, it's still important.
Of course. Yeah.
One thing I want to experience is a cup final. That's the only thing.
Yes, in Berlin. Yeah.
In Berlin, that's my biggest dream. We were very near to it this year in the quarterfinal.
Yeah,
but yeah. Also falling in that period, around his death. So I was pretty close, and I just want that at some point. It doesn't have to be in the next 5 years, but would be nice.
Thank you so much, Misha, for taking us on an unusual journey with an unusual club president. And all the best to you and to Hertha's future.
Thank you very much for that time.
Thank you. Be well. If you listened to the last episode on the Assistant Professor of Football, you will know that I dropped the episode 2 weeks ago, postponed it to today because I was in Europe for 2 weeks with my 2 daughters. We watched 2 games while we were there. A tight loss of Sturm Graz, my club, at home against Salzburg. It was a wonderful stadium experience, though. Great to be there, especially with my children. And then in Munich, we visited 1860 and a memorable home win. Memorable in part because the stadium was locked for an hour. The sound system wouldn't work and we had to wait in front of the gates. And then they won against Viktoria Köln as well. Especially fun game. Great to soak in the atmosphere in Munich. My youngest daughter collected the beer cups for the fund, the €1 you get back. And then she donated a bunch of those euros to the TIFO fund of the fan groups. It was good to be there with them and be there. And we are back on schedule. I look forward to the episode in 2 weeks. If everything works as planned, we will focus on the new proposal for a football regulator in England. And that could affect not just the Premier League, but English and possibly European football below as well. So I look forward to that. Until then, be well.